Hello. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to our second Money Monday webinar. My name is Jack from the Black Billion team, and I'll be your host for the next 20 to 30 minutes. In case you are not sure, Money Mondays are a series of live webinars available through the Black Billion platform, and it's just a chance for you to take a little bit of time out of your week, share some financial wellbeing tips, and get money smarter. Last week, we covered the basics of budgeting with Black Billion CEO Vivi Friedgut. If you missed that one, then the recording will be available soon on the platform. As soon as I can figure out how to get it up there, then I'll make it available for you to all see. This week, I have the pleasure of being joined by Jodie and Jacob from the University Unlocked podcast to talk about flatmates and finance. Jodie and Jacob are both currently second-year students studying in Manchester, who co-host the University Unlocked podcast with lots and lots of tips and advice on not only surviving but thriving throughout your first year of university. The University Unlocked podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. So, Jodie and Jacob, welcome to Money Monday. How are you doing?
Good. It's very sunny today in Manchester, which is quite rare, actually.
Yes, it's very rare. It's a lovely day.
Nice.
Usually it's chucking it down, but
it was cold here. It was frosty here this morning, and it sort of put me in.
Oh no, actually, when I stepped outside, it was literally 4
I was
degrees.
chilly.
Yeah, it was chilly.
Very chilly.
I'm like, it's literally the middle of October. Why are we in Arctic conditions already? But no,
Yeah.
I think we're both good. Apart from that,
as always, if anyone has any questions that pop up throughout the webinar, then please feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm not sure where the chat's going to be. It's going to be either over here or over there. But to kick us off, to kick us off, obviously the topic is sort of dealing with flatmates and finances. I just wanted to give you both an opportunity just to start off and say, like, is this something that you've experienced at university, having to sort of like deal with, it could be around sort of pressures to go out or sort of asking a friend for some money back that you've lent them, anything like that?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I think in terms of, obviously it's different when you're in second year, because like you're meant to be living with like people you're hopefully semi-friends with, so there's a lot less kind of going on in terms of pressure. I think it's quite different in first year when you first move into a flat and you're meeting all of these different people for the first time, and you want to put your best foot forward, and I don't know, maybe you're having a bit of a persona going on. I think I had a bit of a freshers persona.
No,
but,
definitely the same. Everyone's faking it a little bit, but not in a kind of mean way. Then it's just to make yourself feel a bit more confident. But
so I think in terms of pressure, you're definitely kind of under the guise of being the most fun that you will be in Freshers Week. But me personally, I have never felt any pressure like to go out or to do something I didn't want to do. So I think potentially I'm quite lucky in that way. But for everyone that I've met at university, there's never been any sort of you're lame for not going out or something like that. I
feel like people usually respect your decision. If you feel like, you're feeling ill, you're not up to it, then people will tend to say, well, I respect your decision not to go out. I think also sometimes that pressure actually comes from yourself. Especially I think during Freshers Week, you feel very much like I need to go out every night, or I need to go to this because I won't make friends otherwise. And I think that might carry through, especially in semester one. You feel like you feel obliged to go to everything you're invited to because you're being nice or you want to meet more people. So I think the pressure actually sometimes comes from yourself.
I think that's definitely true. Specifically for semester 2, didn't follow my own advice and kind of was running out of money towards the end of the year. And that's the kind of time when it was really sunny outside. Everyone was doing these cute little picnics. I was like, guys, I've got no money. Can I come anyway?
I think that's completely right. Like, I think everyone's experience is like slightly different. And I know you guys will find this from the podcast. Like it's quite hard to offer sort of like a template of advice because everyone has a slightly different experience and everyone has slightly different social circles and different friends. So it's not like everyone has the exact same experience, and it can be a little bit different. But I think I completely agree. Like sometimes you get in your own head a little bit and you can feel a bit of pressure about like, oh, I need to go out or I need to look like I'm a fun person, when really like it is fine. It is fine to sort of like, if you're, you know, if you're sort of getting a bit tight on finances, it's fine to sort of like stay in, and people are very understanding as well.
Yeah.
No, they really are. Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question, is there anything that you hear from like any other students? Are there any sort of like common issues that ever sort of crop up around sort of, dealing with flatmates or dealing with sort of like finances, anything like that?
I would say it's probably not being paid back for things.
Yeah.
Or sharing things. So in my flat last year, we didn't share anything like washing up liquid, or what else didn't we share? We didn't share milk or anything like that. So I suppose
Yeah,
that
but I think that's kind of normal in first year when you don't really know the people that you're living with.
But yeah, I think the most common thing is not being paid back for things. Like if you're, especially in Freshers Week, or if you're going out with people you don't really know, don't expect to be paid back for that Uber that you've ordered, because people, you know, they might seem nice, but they probably will forget. You know, they'll be like, "Oh,
that is a classic one. That is a classic. Buy a drink,
it's not happening."
Yeah.
I think maybe not so much around finance, but like a big thing that I kind of am finding this year and a little bit last year was like just taking the bins out. I think like having shared chores is like really nice in theory, but it's a bit different when it comes to actually being like in practice. So I think having a rota is really good, because at the moment we're kind of just taking the bins out whenever they're full. And as much as that's a really nice sentiment to just say, oh yeah, like the person who notices that it's full can take it out, like in reality, I just don't think it works. So that's the biggest thing for me in terms of like housemates and flats and chores and stuff. But
I think that kind of principle works with finance though, is in like enforcing it. And I think in terms of like common issues, I suppose the importance of being semi-transparent, like because everyone at university, everyone's coming from different backgrounds. But if you go to university, which is stereotypically like a lot of people from the same background go to it, you're going to meet people who come from all sorts of different financial positions. So I think if you trust your flatmates enough, then you should feel confident being open with them, being like, okay, you know, I'm not on this week, I'm not on budget, so I won't be going out. So I think that's like could be a common issue. But
equally though, I think it's very normal to not get on with your flatmates. And there are actually quite a lot of people I know have better relationships with people outside their flat and are like almost adopted by other flats. So don't be afraid if you get to your flat and you're like, oh my God, like these people are just not my people. That happened sort of to me with, like, not really, but obviously you're very good friends in first year with the other flat, like opposite you. So that's like, it's really nice. I think other flats, and don't worry if you don't get on with the people.
It's a common thing. Like sometimes it gets to the sort of the crunch zone and it's like, right, okay, I need to pick my people for next year and I need to pick like who I'm living with. And like, as you sort of like go through your experience, your social group might change slightly, or it might be, you know, you might feel like close to some people that maybe you're not living with and things like that. So I think that is a completely like normal experience to have, and lots of people do have that experience. And I think again, it's just one of those things where, you know, that's completely fine, and it's okay, and you shouldn't feel like bad about it or anything like that. Jodie, you just mentioned it. I was going to say, do you have any tips for conflict avoidance? You mentioned like a shared rota. Is there anything like that you want to bring up?
I think from my experience, is like, don't. So one of my friends from home, this is kind of like baiting her out a little bit, would leave Post-its. And I think that's the worst possible thing you can do. I think talking to people in person is the best way of conflict avoidance. Don't be putting, if you have a flat group chat, do not be putting messages being like, oh guys, the kitchen is so dirty, or like, oh my gosh, I've like the kitchen's so clean today. Like, guess you cleaned it. I think that just is the wrong way of going about it, in my opinion. So I think conflict avoidance is just being transparent, setting up those systems. That means like you are all grown adults, so you know you should be able to keep a space clean, but you would be surprised. So I think like just try to talk to people in a like a decent manner, I think.
Especially at the beginning of like your relationship with them, because I think once you get to know someone better, it's so much easier to talk about things like money. It was like, for example, once you know someone, you can be like, oh yeah, I'll buy you a drink. Like, I know you got the, like, you paid for my club entry yesterday.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I know you got the Uber here. Let me buy you a drink. And then that kind of balances out. But when you're at the beginning of your friendship with someone, I think it's a lot harder to know if you can do that.
Yeah.
So
you have to
I
be
think
selfish
having
in a way.
these like structures in place, especially at the beginning, is so beneficial, because once you're out of that initial awkward phase, it's a lot less likely that there will be conflict. So like putting your best foot forward at the start and putting these structures in place, and things like rotas and things like just making sure that you're buying things for yourself and not having to rely on other people. I know that's a bit harsh, and in some cases is difficult, but I think it's definitely better to do that in order to get out of the awkward phase, and then the conflict resolution is so much easier once you're actually friends.
Finances and money is like it's a very personal and sort of intimate thing, and sometimes it can be, it's quite difficult to sort of like have these conversations with people without, one, making other people feel uncomfortable or being uncomfortable a little bit yourself. So I think you're completely right there. Like it's fine. Like once you begin to establish sort of relationships with people, and you get to sort of know like whether or not, how likely they are to sort of pay you back. Because that's one of the things as well. It's like, I know sometimes you want to sort of put your best foot forwards, but you need to ask like, oh, can I actually afford to like lend this person like £20, or do I need to sort of like think about myself a little bit first? And I think like it's okay to be comfortable with like not lending someone a little bit of money, and because you know that you're going to sort of like need it for yourself, or that you're going to be behind on budget a little bit. One of the things that I wanted to ask you guys about, you have a really good TikTok clip, and it's a part of one of your podcast episodes where you're giving little sort of like tips for Freshers Week. And specifically you mentioned about the wristbands and the sort of like Freshers FOMO. Do you want to talk a little bit around that, or do you have any other sort of like little tips there as well around, or can you, for anyone that might not have heard as well, do you want to explain the sort of like the wristband thing?
Okay.
Without calling out any specific university or institution, please.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's the same. The situation is the same at every single university, where you'll get like people advertising a wristband for like nights out in Freshers Week, and you'll usually get about 7 to 14 different club nights,
or you can get ones that are like 3 events, but the same principle.
And it's very much like fear mongering, especially young naive students who have never been to university before and are actually really worried about making friends, saying like, this will sell out before you move into halls, like this is already 90% sold out, get yours while you still can, all of that stuff. Basically trying to FOMO you into spending about £40 on a wristband, and with where the majority of the events you actually want to go to.
I think it's so sad, because the people who tend to pressure incoming students into this kind of like this buying the wristbands, because in an attempt to avoid FOMO, are fellow students, and a lot of the time they don't even go to the university. They're joining open group chats and sending
like
their rep links, so they make money from you. So our advice for that would be avoid the wristbands until you get to university and you know the people you're going to go out with, because if you buy a wristband and the rest of your flat don't have the same wristband, or they don't have wristbands, they might not buy the wristband, you'll have wasted your money. So a lot of them it's quite inflated price, whereas you can save the money and by going to the events that you'll need to go to. You know that you'll go to.
You can always buy tickets at the door, even if they say you can't, you can. And like Jacob said, waiting until you actually get to university, till you meet your flatmates, and then you can all go on similar nights out and have the same wristband. That in that situation, yes, it's beneficial, because you are likely to save money by having the same wristband. And if you go to all of the events, you will definitely save money. However, if you buy the wrong before uni, you're going to end up spending more, which is then not good. We've had comments on TikTok of people saying they spent £1,000 in Freshers Week.
It's actually insane. People we were like, we did a TikTok on how much we saved for Freshers Week or how much we spent.
Yeah.
And people were like, you're so boring. How did you only spend this amount of money? And it was people who, you know, I don't know if they were joking, but it was people going on about how much they spent, and it was just insane amounts of money, and it's completely not worth it.
Big tip, right? Buy the like unbranded or like really bad branded alcohol from the corner shop. Mix it with squash. Don't be buying these bottles of VK. Like, it's not worth it. Just don't buy branded alcohol, and you'll save yourself so much money. Don't buy alcohol if you don't want to. You can do a club night sober. I know some of my friends have done that before. Maybe not me though. But you know, don't feel pressure to go out always. Like, it's a big money saving thing. I think
I think I think it's the wristband discussion, I think it's a great tip. And like, it's one of those ones, I know I said at the start, like everyone's experience is different, but like I went to university sort of 4 or 5 years before you guys, and it did strike me how like lots has changed, but lots have stayed the same as well. And the whole sort of like reps trying to sort of shift these wristbands and trying to make students feel like they're going to miss out on sort of socializing and social nights is exactly the same as like my experiences when I went as well. So yeah, I think it's a good cause. You're fighting the good fight.
We're on the right side.
Yeah, you definitely are. Just to bring it back to sort of like finances, I was going to say, do you have any, obviously you guys are in second year, you've just sort of, well, you recently would have gone through the process of looking for accommodation for your second year and, you know, setting up sort of like your rent and everything. I know some accommodations have sort of bills and everything included. Do you have any sort of like hot tips to share around that in terms of sort of splitting payments between flatmates or sort of sharing payments, anything like that?
So I know I kind of replicate this practice. So my twin brother, for context, goes to Bristol, and it's very common in Bristol not to have bills included. I think we both have bills included in our houses. Yeah. So they use, and we use this as my home friendship group. We use this on holiday when we go on our group holidays. Why?
Yeah, we're doing that now.
Yeah. So it simplifies all the payments, which means you don't have to constantly be paying each other back. So you could set it up that every 2 weeks, you know, if there's shared expenses in your house, that you settle that all up. I think with setting up bills, something you could do is share whose card they go on. So if you split the water, if you know you're doing a separate company for water, electricity, one person water is on their card, electricity is on someone else, because obviously they all usually come out at the same time of the month, which then means either that person who has all the payments on their card set up is going to go into that overdraft, or it's just a lot of kind of not even financial stress. It's like a lot of the time you don't necessarily know how much money is going to come out of the account. I think also setting the expectation for things like bills being paid back quite quickly, and usually they give you an estimate of the time frame. But at least for our houses, I know that Splitwise is quite good. Or we will do it as we know who's because I lived with 9 people last year and I live with 6 now. So it's way easier to keep track of who's bought the toilet roll, who's bought washing up liquid. So it's kind of like almost on a rotation, I'd say that they're my kind of tips for like managing, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, it is difficult to look for a house for your second year. And, you know, we have an episode all about that. So I'm not going to go into kind of talking about that. But the one kind of tip that I will say is that if you can, I think for just simply for convenience, simply to avoid kind of conflict with your flatmates, housemates, in like avoiding having to text them every week, being like, hey, like, can you send me the money? Every month being like, the bills, just the money's been taken out of my account and this is how much you owe me. For convenience, if you can find a house with bills included, or you can ask the landlord, can you do bills included in this house? I think it just makes it so much easier. Obviously, it's not always an option, and sometimes you are going to have to put someone down as the named bill payer. And you know what? Like, as in the case of your brother, that is just what has to happen. But for convenience, personally, I just find it so much easier.
You don't always have the luxury, and I think also sometimes the bill packages aren't worth it, but for us it was. And I think I remembered sometimes houses, they don't take payment from each person for rent. At least they'll take it from just the lead tenant. So what you could do is just sort of, you have to set this up anyway, but a direct debit to the person who it's going to come out of. So they have to, regardless if they have the money or not, it's going to come out of their account. So I think that's a piece of advice as well with bills. If you kind of know how much it's going to be in advance, ensuring that reoccurring payment's going to come out so you don't have to chase about it.
I am a big advocate for sort of neobanks like Monzo or Starling or Revolut.
I love Starling.
Platforms like that. Like,
big fan of Starling.
Setting up standing orders of direct debits as well, like to your flatmates. You can use the sort of like pots feature as well. So if you say you are sort of lead tenant, or if you're a bill payer and you're not sure if you're going to have enough money to sort of like cover the payment, just having a pot, so like it's set aside separate to your actual current account, and you know it's there. Yeah, exactly. So you know it's coming out. And then also, I'm not sure. So I'm a big fan of Monzo. The shared tabs feature inside the Monzo app. Yeah, sorry, Jacob. The shared tab feature is really, really good. So you can add everyone. You can split payments, and say if you've got like a sort of group or 6 or 7 of you, and for example, like say if you did a food shop or you had a barbecue and one person wasn't a meat eater, when you're sort of like splitting the payments, you can just exclude that person from like the split payment. So it will work it all out for you, but then you can just put like a 0 so they don't have to sort of pay anything back. So it's like super, super flexible. And I'm a big advocate for those sorts of platforms, because it just takes the load off, and like it makes it so much easier when you're not having to sit down like pen and paper and be like, right, what has everyone used, or like what does everyone actually owe, and things like that as well. So yeah, big fan, and big shout.
I think one of our tips is to do something similar to that. We mentioned having 2 cards, but if you're using an online banking app where you have different pots, it's basically the same thing, because you can just transfer the money for the week into a separate pot, or separate account if you're doing the cards thing. And that's like, I think the biggest kind of Money Monday tip that we can give. It just makes your life so much easier. So you can see exactly how much you have.
I think it's the actual visibility of knowing that, okay, if your budget's, I don't know, £80 for the week, you look on Wednesday, you've got £50 left for the week. And it allows you also, on a lot of internet banks, it categorizes your spending in a really easy to see way. And I think that's what really helps. Knowing where your biggest expenses are and things like that. I also want to mention, I don't know if it's on Monzo, but I know it's on Starling, that you can send someone a payment link, so they don't even need to take your bank details. And I think that's one of the biggest things. If you send it, I don't know, well, I have an Android, but I know that if you send it to someone on Snapchat, you can't like open, and then it's just such a pain. So having a bank that makes it really easy to have someone pay you back, there is literally no excuse.
Then you can tell your flatmates, look, I've literally sent you the
link. You can pay with Apple Pay. You don't have to put your own bank details in.
I think that's it. I think in terms of like finances and budgeting as well, like I think it's all about like high friction stuff and low friction stuff. So you both just mentioned it there. The high friction stuff sometimes is where, if you want to be sort of more disciplined and you're saying, right, I'm going to have this pot, or I'm having this account, and you can lock your pots, or if it's a separate bank account, then there's lots of sort of steps you have to go through for transferring over. So you know that you're not going to just do it in an impulse. And then on the other end of the spectrum as well, making things as easy as possible, like making things as frictionless as possible, especially when it's things about like sort of getting paid back. If you're not having to sort of share like, right, this is a sort code and this is my name and have they spelled it right and everything like that, like, is the easier you can make it, I think the sort of like better it's going to be. Right, we are getting a little bit short on time, so I am going to move us along to the quickfire round. No, it's great. It's great. I'm going to move us along to the quickfire round. So we might have already covered it, but so just 1 sentence answers from each of you, please. So the first question is your favorite money saving tip. Hello. Are we still on? Am I still? Well, I might have lost Jacob and Jodie. I'm not sure. I can't tell if it's my end or if it's Jacob and Jodie. I'm not sure. Maybe I will answer the quickfire round questions. I'm still on. Oh, you're still here.
Great.
Hello. Can you hear me? I lost you for a second. Thanks.
Right.
Thank you people in the
Yeah,
chat for letting me know that I was still on. I had a moment there where I thought, is it me or is it Jacob and Jodie that have gone? Thank you. Thank you, Danielle, in the chat for letting me know that I was still on. Right. Sorry. We'll cut that out in post. It's fine. Just ignore it.
No one needs to know that.
Yeah. That's the problem with doing these things live. Favorite money saving tip. Jodie, please go first.
Ours is going to be, I know it's going to be
it's
the
the
same.
same,
Me
it's
and
the
Jacob
same.
are always on the same wavelength about this, but it's the 2 cards thing, separate pots of money, really easy to visualize how much you're spending, or if you have spent too much and then you know how much you need to compensate.
That's more than one sentence.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2 is your favorite finance app on your phone right now.
I would say I don't do anything outside of the banking app. So I would say Starling for the visualization feature.
I like Google Sheets for my
Do you do an actual spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think there's definitely people that are like, right, internet banking app, and like it will do it all for me. And then there's the Google Sheets people, which I respect, Jodie, because that's almost like a full-time job as well. So
Really,
respect for doing it all. Do you have an underrated tip? Like, is there something that like you think that more people need to know about? And this could be anything about sort of like your flatmates or your finances, anything like that. What's like a little underrated tip that like you wish more people would know about?
I think it's definitely the using a bank which lets you send a payment link. That is so
really not confused, but they're always like, oh, this is so easy to pay me back with a link. I would say, I suppose, budgeting under. I don't know if that's an underrated tip, but I always will budget for my weekly allowance is lower than I have the money for, if that makes sense. So like I could budget over, but it means I have excess. If you have that privilege of doing so, I'd say, because it means you can what's the word? It means you're in a more secure position.
If you have like a bit of a surplus, then you have a little bit of like extra money left over, and then if there's like a night out or something, or if you have an expense that you need to pay for, then it's always just better just to have like an extra little bit rather than sort of like operating in sort of deficit. Last one will just be what advice would you give to your younger self? Like if you could speak to yourself from like a year ago, is there any specific advice?
As in younger self, as in first year self, or just like younger self in terms of much younger?
I'll say like
spend less money on clothes. There we go. That's mine.
Jodie was around my house yesterday, and she was considering spending far too much money on a jacket.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
You'll be pleased to know I didn't. Oh, ask yourself, do I need this?
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
I think with bigger purchases, especially my younger self, because I was quite irresponsible with money. I just spend. And then wonder why I had no money to save because I was just spending. But I would say it's a kind of like Marie Kondo tip. Well, will this bring me happiness? And go back to the purchase like 24 hours, 48 hours. Some people say a month, a big purchase, and think, does my life actually need this? Especially with things like clothes. If you know that you're going to wear it once, if it's an item that is basically based off a trend, then
maybe it's a no-go.
If it's something that it will bring value to your life, then that's kind of my tip I would say to myself.
I was gonna that would be my one as well. Is like sort of, if you feel yourself wanting something, just wait like 2 or 3 days, and then like if you still want it, then I think it's just a good sort of like litmus test. Yeah, exactly, to sort of know like whether or not this is an impulse or whether or not like it's something that you actually sort of do want to spend money on. So that's the end of the quickfire round, and that brings us to the end of the webinar. We're at sort of 30 minutes and 23 seconds, which is quite nice. Thank you very much both for coming on. Where can people find more about you? Like, have you got anything coming up that you would like to sort of like share with us at all, or?
Nothing
plans?
super definite at the moment, but the best way to find us is on Instagram and TikTok at University Unlocked Pod. And if you haven't listened to any of our episodes or listened to some, you haven't listened to them all, we're basically on every streaming platform you could possibly use.
Yeah.
So you can't escape
And if we're
us.
not,
send us
a
DM
message. We'll be
because-
on there straight away.
Yeah, we'll be on there. But yeah, I'd say the best way to keep up to date with possibly things we'll be doing in the future is on our Instagram at University Unlocked Pod. There we go.
On the
Amazing.
screen now.
Amazing. Thank you both for joining. I'll give a quick little shout out as well to the Black Bullion app as well. If you would like to sort of, if you're looking for something to try and help manage your finances, get insights, understand sort of how to make your money last to a certain date, then definitely check out the Black Bullion app. I think, I'm not sure where it's going to appear, but it's a little QR code. Yeah, it's under you. But for the viewers, it appears somewhere else, Jacob. Like it's kind
I'm
of
so sorry. Maybe
yeah, I
it's on
know.
your
That's
side
why
then.
it's over here somewhere. But I know that much. But thank you both for joining. Thank you to everyone in the chat for joining as well. We'll be back next Monday at 3 p.m. I'll be talking to Vivi again about interest rates. So everything to sort of do with sort of interest rates. What are interest rates? How does it work? Where does it come from? How does it affect you as a student or someone in education as well? So thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe we'll be doing next week.
You definitely should. Yeah, and you can chat to Jacob and Jodie in the chat as well, because they'll both definitely be here. All right, okie dokes. Thank you very much for joining, everyone, and I will see you next week. So goodbye everyone. Bye.